Welcome to GST211 class titled History and Philosophy of Sciences. Now, 6 of us are going to be taking the course. It is expected that everybody should participate in his area as assigned by the coordinator. Now, I, Zubair Abdulmin Loko, is saddled with the responsibility of taking you this aspect, the course outline that I'm expected to cover. At the end of the day, you are expected to have a better understanding of, you should be able to mention at least 5 areas science and technology have impacted in the society, distinguish clearly between science and technology. You should be able to describe briefly development of technology, outline vividly the importance of science, technology, and invention to the nation of the world. Finally, you should be able to classify accurately between science and technology. Now, by way of introduction, carefully, as the course title entails, it stands in for history, philosophy of science. Now, when you talk of history is an occurrence of what has happened in the past, either documented or not documented. Philosophy of science has to do with the way science lives its own life. When you talk of philosophy, let's look at it from the angle of individualistic. You said philosophy is the way of life. For example, the way I choose to deal or do away with my life or do along with my life. It stands as my philosophy. The way you've chosen, the pattern in which you've chosen to do your own way of life is also your own philosophy. And that is what, in brief, a philosophy is. Now, relating it to sciences, the term science is a Latin word which is derived from the term scientia, which implies knowledge. That is just a simple definition of what science is all about. Now, by this simple definition, it does not actually capture in details what science is all about. You said, okay, it's a Latin word that is derived from the term scientia, yes, which simply means knowledge. What kind of knowledge? It has not classified the knowledge we are talking about. On the other hand, that science has been defined as a knowledge of the world of nature. Okay, when you're talking of knowledge of world of nature, it has not yet classified what kind of world of nature are we talking about. Now, these two basic definitions has not actually give an in-depth of what science is all about. Now, it is on this basis that Unwala, 1997, came up with 3 definitions of what science is all about. Now, science is defined as a body of knowledge, that is number 1. Secondly, that science is a method of acquiring knowledge or studying and understanding the world. Number 2, science is an institution. Now, upon this definition, we shall pick one at a time to have an understanding of the in-depth of the definition so that we can have a clue of what this definition stands in for. Let's take science as a body of knowledge. The idea of science as a body of knowledge, what does this body stand in for? What does the word body tells you or tell you? Bodies of knowledge, generally regarded as science, includes chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics, microbiology, pharmacy, and medicine. The bodies of knowledge differs from other forms of knowledge such as religion and art in both content and in form. You see, when we are in secondary school, some of us are finished secondary school who are very afraid of sciences. Once they made mention of science, what triggers into their mind is physics, chemistry, biology. Yes, you are not far from the truth. That is what science is all about. But coming to give it a clear understanding that the bodies of knowledge generally regarded as science include chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics, microbiology, pharmacy, and so on and so forth. That these bodies of knowledge differs from other forms of knowledge such as religion and art in both content and in form. Of course, content of biology can never be the same thing as content of IRS, Islamic religious knowledge. Content of chemistry can never be the same thing as content of CRS, Christian religious knowledge, and so on and so forth. And that is what we clearly state that, or that is why this definition clearly states the bodies that are actually regarded as what we call science stand in for: chemistry, physics, biology, mathematics, and so on and so forth. That is how best we can give an explanation of what science as a body of knowledge stand in for. Going to the second definition, as described by Nwala 1997, that science as a method of acquiring knowledge. Let's see how we can digress it further. Science has a well-known procedure for obtaining knowledge, which we are very much aware. The two branches of science, which are formal sciences and empirical science, use what is called scientific method. The two steps of that method include observation, problem hypothesis formulation, experimentation, conclusion, and theory formulation. Now, that's two branches of science which are empirical and formal. What do they stand in for? That formal sciences or formal science utilizes concepts, rules, and theories and expresses them in quantitative and statistical manner. Now, what does this simple sentence stand in for? Let's take, for example, at least everybody who is seated in the class must have taken economics in his secondary school. Now, bringing theory of demand and supply, which in relation to their prices or in relation to the price attached to it. For example, they will tell you the higher the price, the lesser the quantity that will be demanded, isn't it? Or the lesser the price, the higher the quantity that will be demanded. That is just a basic principle of law of demand and supply. Now, for example, when we were in secondary school, everybody must have at least have credit in secondary school in economics. Now, when we're in secondary school, you can see how usually they relate or they expresses theory of demand and theory of supply. For example, they will tell you quantity demanded is equal to, that is, under quantity demanded is equal to, maybe for example, let's say 2x plus 5. QD is equal to 2x plus 5. QD stands in for quantity demanded. Now, going to the other way around, that quantity supply is equal to 2x minus 2, for example. This is just an expression, a verbal expression which has been transformed from a verbal expression that is represented quantitatively, and it shall be solved statistically. Now, taking for example, if you take this equation, we used to know in secondary school, they will tell us that at equilibrium, quantity demanded is equal to quantity supply. Now, equating these two equations, where we said 2x plus 5 is equal to 2x minus 2, isn't it? That is at equilibrium. Now, we want to determine when quantity supply is equal to quantity demanded. That is, you have to solve these two simple equations by equating them together. That quantity demanded is equal to QD, which is equal to 2x plus 5. Then we say quantity supply is equal to 2x minus 2. Now, when you get these two equations, for example, let's say quantity demanded is equal to 3x plus 5, then this quantity supply should be equal to 2x minus 2. Now, if you equate them together, you will have 2x plus 5 is equal to 2x minus 2. Now, collecting the lactam, when you have 3x, when x in the other side crosses at equalities and it becomes, if it is positive, it becomes negative. If it is negative, it becomes positive. Now, moving these 2x to the side of 3x, you have 3x minus 2 is equal to minus 2 minus 5. Now, because in this side you have positive vibe. When it crosses one, the equality sign becomes negative, then the other negative 2 stand in there. So you see, when you equate this equation, at the end of the day, you should be able to have x is equals to -7. That is when we said our quantity demanded is equal to quantity supply. If you plug in this -7 into the equation, you should be able to have quantity demand to be equals to quantity supply. And that is why they said science has a well-known procedure for obtaining knowledge. The two branches of science which are empirical, that formal sciences utilizes concepts, rules, theories, and expresses them quantitatively and statistically. So that is just an example of the expression of quantitative, a verbal statement being transformed to quantitative, after which you start transform them also to statistically by way of solving the equation. That anybody that uses scientific method or the method of formal sciences to obtain knowledge is said to be involved in science. Usually we students were very conversant. When we are studying chemistry, we say we are chemists. So you are said to be involved in science. Now, so those of you who are studying engineering, for example, they will tell you that I am an engineer. You are said to be involved in what we call science. Now, moving further, that science as an institution. What does this science as an institution stand in for? Science can be viewed as an institution which comprises of millions of experts. These experts engage in the study and development of human knowledge. The expert, who are these experts? They are known as, or they are also known as scientists, can be found in various research and educational institutions, industries, hospitals, companies, etc. The cooperation and interaction among them make the development of science possible and reliable. Now, what does this stand in for? You see, they said the expert or scientists can be found in various research and educational institutions, such as hospital. I want to pick hospital as a case study. Assuming, for example, God forbid, we don't pray, somebody is sick, you are expected to register yourself with the hospital. When you go to the hospital, where do you first of all go to? Now, the first person to get in contact with in the hospital is the attendant. Assuming you've opened your, for example, if I have to go and open a file, right? You open a file, you deposit money for opening of the file. That is record. When you go to record, after which they will direct you to go and see doctor. On going to see doctor, first of all, you meet the attendant. The attendants will arrange you guys, will give you a number if possible, so that as soon as the doctor comes into the hospital, he will now know how to take you in one at a time. Now, you see, first of all, records are involved, finance is involved, right? Are we together? Now, after finance, the next thing that comes into your mind is the attendance. This is the third category of human being you meet, or the category of humans you meet in the hospital. The attendance, after which you go and see the doctor. When you see the doctor will examine you by asking you some question, germane question of what is wrong with you. After which, by his professionalism, he will now send you to laboratory, maybe to subject you some examination. Then the lab attendants, the lab technologist will have to subject you based on the report of the medical doctor. He conducts tests. After which, if the result is out, he sends it back to the medical doctor. Once it gets to the medical doctor, he will now see the outcome of the result, gives it an interpretation. Thereafter, he will now send you to the pharmacist. Now, you see, there are about 6 to 7 contacts, for example. First of all, you have to go to record, you open a file if you go to the hospital. Doctor cannot be the same person who will open a record or who will open a file for you in the hospital. You have to go and meet the record. The record will now register you properly. You will go to the bank and pay. When you pay, you will go to see the attendants. The attendants will give you a number in order to see the doctor. After which, you see the doctor. You go to the lab as the 5th. You go to the pharmacist after the conclusion of the outcome of the result from the laboratory. And that is why they say the cooperation and interaction among them make the development of science possible and reliable. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is how we view science as an institution. National State University, for example, also is an institution which comprises of so many areas or so many disciplines, and in this discipline there is a relationship, there is collaboration between the parties, and that is why, for example, if you go to Faculty of Natural and Applied Sciences, everybody in Faculty of Natural and Applied Sciences has to take physics 111 so that they have a basic knowledge from what you've learned in secondary school, an extension of more of like what do you call it, review, not review, what do you call it, just to refreshing your memories of what you've learned in secondary school. So you see, cooperation and interaction among the development among the scientists make the development of science possible and reliable. That is, in a short fall, the three definitions propounded by Iwala in 1997. That is how best we can give an explanation to that concept. Now, branches of sciences. Basically, there are two ways of grouping scientific disciplines. Now, the first way of grouping scientific discipline includes formal sciences, 2 empirical science. Now, let's see what it stands in for, or what these branches of sciences or grouping scientific disciplines stand in for. Formal science includes mathematics. In mathematics, you have topics under them: geometry, algebra, trigonometry, arithmetic. This, at least everybody seated in the class, you are expected to have at least C6 in your mathematics, which I believe all of you seated have. Isn't it so? I hope all of you are not from Miracle Center, so they call. So if truly you have credit, you earn a credit in mathematics yourself, you must have been very conversant, or you must have come across this topic: geometry, algebra, trigonometry, arithmetic, and so on and so forth. These are topics that fall under mathematics. Moving further, it comprises, that is, formal sciences comprises of logic, theoretical physics, and statistics, and so on and so forth. Formal science have a formal and deductive character. Science is said to be formal if its content, argument, and procedures obey certain rules. The results and conclusions of such science are valid and authentic only if they conform to those rules. And that is why they will tell you that science has a well-known procedure for obtaining knowledge. Without following such procedure, there is no how you can obtain expected result. You can't have accurate expected result. Moving further, on the other second classification of the first classification, we said we have formal, which we've dealt with. Now, empirical sciences, on the other hand, which hand? Is it left hand or right hand? That is on the hand of empirical sciences. It includes physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, botany, zoology, biochemistry, macrobiology, geology, medical sciences, and so on and so forth. This, that is empirical science, study objects and phenomena which can be observed through any of the senses and which can be tested with instruments such as the telescope, microscope, ruler, tapes, and scale. In fact, these days, even if you go to the market, you want to buy meat, they will measure it with scale. They will tell you how many kg do you want it is. The prices are tagged according to scale. In other words, anything that cannot be observed with sense of sight, and when you're talking of sense of sight, you're talking of your eye. Touch, you have to feel it with your hand. Hearing, your ear is involved. Taste, your tongue is involved. And smell, your nose now will be involved. With instruments such as ruler, which we are very conversant with, what we use to measure in classes, for example, if you are plotting graphs and so on and so forth. Telescope, etc. It is said to be outside science. Empirical scientists observe and experiment in order to find out how things originate, how things grow, how things develop, how things function, are relate to each other. They also try to find out the laws which governs their behavior. They are interested in irregularities of or laws which enable them to understand or explain the object or phenomena under study. The knowledge derived in empirical sciences include inductive generalizations, laws, and theories. Now, before moving further, let me just give us, let me give you a practical example. Gonna do this when you don't have even a standardized hospitals, forefathers who have lived without the existence of some of the hospital we enjoy today. For example, in those days, you will see a lady who has gotten married, she'll be giving birth, and the children will be dying, isn't it? These are some examples. As at that time, nobody knew the cause of the death of the children. Now, thank God, with the advancement of sciences or existence of science, we have come. Now, even before you get married, for example, you have to go and do cross match. That is blood. You have to check. I hope your fiancé or the person you want to get married to is not an SS. You are also not, your genotype is not an SS. She's not SS. If the two of you are SS, except you want to end your life all the time visiting hospital, then you get married to each other. If not, professional will tell you no. The two of you cannot, and that is what science has come to brought to us. Now, in fact, you have to go and test yourself. You have HIV, if you don't have it, at least let there be compatibility so that you produce children that at the end of the day will have hitch free. If not completely, at least it will be minimized compared to when you an SS married somebody who is a sickler is married, is getting married to a sickler, you know, it's going to be very, very disastrous. This is just an example, and that is what science has brought to us. One of the greatest achievements science has brought to our life. Now, moving further, object which cannot be perceived by senses include value such as the goodness. How can you measure goodness of an individual? As a person, I can say, this guy is a good person, but the other person might not be looking at it in that perspective. Or I can say this guy is bad, and the other person will say, no, that guy is not a bad person. So you can't measure either goodness or badness of a thing. You cannot measure rightness of a thing. You cannot measure the virtue of a thing. You cannot measure the beauty, holiness, and the truth. If the following statement is made, for example, Ada is a good girl, do you think you can measure the goodness with your senses or measure it with instruments? These are impossible. It is not possible. And so the study of goodness is outside empirical sciences. That is just an example I want to bring concerning what you call empirical sciences. So anything that cannot be measured, that cannot be tested, that cannot be felt, that cannot be touched, either by seeing with your naked eyes or using instrument to do that, this concept is said to be does not fall under empirical science. It is outside the concept of what we call science. Now, I have said earlier, there are two ways of grouping scientific discipline. The first way of grouping scientific discipline is 1, empirical sciences, 2, it's a formal sciences, which we have done justice to that. Now, the second way of grouping the scientific discipline, according to Nwala in 1997, you have 1, natural sciences, 2, social sciences. Now, under natural sciences, it's subdivided into 4. For example, 1, you have physical sciences, biological sciences, medical sciences, pharmaceutical sciences. Now let's look at this subdivision of the branches of sciences. Physical sciences, which include disciplines like physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, astronomy, etc. This deals with physical and inanimate objects such as rocks, rivers, and mountains, and so on and so forth. Now I know somebody will ask, sir, why is it that you have physics, though theoretical physics, in formal sciences, and you are also having it under natural sciences, that is physical sciences, you are having physics again. Now you should be aware, or you should know, that even in physics you have branches of physics. Branches of physics. For example, I'm from Department of Physics. In physics we have 5 units under physics. You have physics, electronics and communication. You have theoretical physics. You have geophysics, radiation and medical physics, and so on and so forth. So the classification or sub branches of physics can fit in it according to their classification. Now moving to biological sciences, discipline under it includes biology, zoology, botany, macrobiology. Deal with living bodies such as human beings, animals, insects and plants. Medical sciences, the third branches of natural sciences, they include general medicine, anatomy, surgery, physiology and veterinary medicine. These disciplines deal with objects and problems that affect human and animal health. Pharmaceutical sciences, which is the last but not the least subdivision of natural sciences, which include pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy and pharmacology. These disciplines are concerned with drugs and drug content of plants and other objects. That is the last but not the least subdivision of natural science. The second classification of sciences is the social sciences. Discipline under it are economics, social philosophy, social psychology, geography, sociology and anthropology, social philosophy, and so on and so forth. I know some of you will say, sir, we are from faculty of social sciences. Why is it that our own department is not mentioned? For example, political sciences, sociology is mentioned, political sciences, and so on and so forth. Now, and that is why they said ETC. You cannot mention everything here. So please you take note. If you fall under the classification of social sciences, don't worry, you have to be mentioned, but we don't have much space to start mentioning everybody's department. Okay? Now moving further, this deals to society and social institution. That is the second classification that has to do with social science. It deals with society and social institution. Now, in spite of all this classification of science, there is a point that is worth noting. The differences between the disciplines are not absolute. According to Taylor in 1979, that differences between disciplines are not absolute. For example, you will agree with me years back, for example, economics, accounting, business admin, the taxation, marketing as well, they used to be under the same umbrella. Technology advances, knowledge expands, and that is why everybody is taking his own position. But however, you should note that their differences is not completely absolute, because it interwoves with one another. Let me take you for example. If you are solving physics equation, you have to refer, for example, assuming equation comes in a form that you have 2 to the power of 5 times 2 to the power of 2 divided by 2 to the power of 3, for example. If the question comes in this form, you see there is no how, even though the question is in physics, you cannot dodge away from bringing law of indices. For example, the law of indices, if you are solving an equation, the base is the same, you add up the power. You now say 2 to the power of 5 plus 2, you end up having 2 to the power of 7. Now you divide it. If you are dividing, another law of indices says if the base are the same and you are dividing them together, you need to subtract the power. Then you have to bring 2 to the power of 7 minus 2 to the power of 3. You end up having 2 to the power of 4, which is equal to 2 times 2 times 2 into 4 places. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 times 2 16. At the end of the day, your result will be equals to 16. So that is just a little example that we should always ring in our mind. Now, aims of science. In the last or in the above discussion, before examining the steps involved in the process of obtaining knowledge, let us turn to the aims or purpose of science. Why do you think people involve themselves in scientific activities? Right from dawn of history, man has tried to understand himself and the nature that surrounds him. He has seen the world around him, which evidently has reminded the same world, and yet is full of change, motion, and of variety. There are dawns and sunsets, births and deaths, the solid earth and ever restless seas. There are various kind of things in the world, minerals, plants, and men. Thus, we can say that science aims at enabling man to explain how the world, events, and objects around him originate, develop, operate, or function. It also helps to predict how they will behave in future, and thus enables him to control the behavior of things around him. Once he is able to develop the appropriate instrument for such control. This theory was also propounded by Nwala, 1997. Thus, science is theoretical. It equips us with theoretical knowledge about the world. Such knowledge is usually summarized using concepts, laws, and theories. This helps us to express a systematize our understanding of object phenomena. Science also equips us with practical knowledge in terms of the various ways, mechanism, and instruments which enable us to control objects and phenomena. Science is therefore not only source of knowledge, it is also source of power. Thank you for listening. See you next class.